So, what if the person you see in the mirror isn't actually the real you? We're about to dive into this really fascinating idea that suggests our true self is actually hidden, completely separate from our senses. Let's break down how this all works. The source material we're looking at kicks things off with a real mind bender. How can you be so sure that you're not in a dream right now? It's an old philosophical puzzle, for sure, but here it's used to get you thinking about the very foundation of your own identity. I mean, if you can't be 100% certain your reality is real, how can you be certain about who you really are? And this really gets to the heart of the problem. The source uses this analogy. You can't pinpoint your location on a map without some other point of reference, right? Well, in the very same way, it argues that to find your true self, you need a reference point that's totally outside your physical body and your senses. If you don't have that, you're basically lost. So, from this point of view, all of this confusion isn't just some abstract puzzle. No, it's a fundamental case of mistaken identity. The argument is that we're looking in all the wrong places because we're identifying with the wrong version of ourselves.
Okay, so how does this mistaken identity actually work? Well, the source breaks you down into two different versions. First up, you've got the outward man. That's your physical body, the part that experiences the world through your senses. It's perishable, it gets older. But then there's the inward man. This is described as the human spirit, the real you. And unlike the body, it's not supposed to decay. In fact, it's renewed day by day.
So, where does this whole idea of a hidden, inward self even come from? Well, the source material builds its entire case using specific scriptural texts as the evidence for this inward man. The first piece of evidence that's presented comes from the book of Romans. This quote here directly introduces that term, inward man, and it frames it as the part of a person that's in tune with spiritual laws, something totally distinct from, your outward actions or your physical body. Next up, this reference from 1 Peter adds another really interesting layer. It connects the concept to the heart, calling it the hidden man of the heart. The key words there are hidden and not corruptible, which really reinforces the idea that this self is totally separate from the physical, perishable body. Now, this quote from 2 Corinthians is probably the clearest distinction of all. It sets up a direct contrast between the two concepts we just talked about. The outward man, the body, perishes. It gets weaker. It gets older. But the inward man, the spirit, is described as being constantly renewed, staying strong and full of faith, even when the body is breaking down. So, to pull all of that together, this is what the source means when it talks about the inward man. It's not just a metaphor. It's presented as the human spirit, the literal, real you that lives inside the house of your physical body. It's seen as the absolute core of your nature, totally hidden from your senses. Okay, so if this inward man is the real you, how in the world does it interact with everything? The source proposes a really specific framework for how we perceive reality and how we believe, and it separates it all into three distinct parts. So this framework breaks our consciousness down like this. First, there's the brain. It connects us to the physical world through our five senses: touch, taste, sight, and so on. Second, there's the mind, which handles the intellectual world of logic and reason. But then there's a third part, the spirit. This is the inward man, and it's said to be the part that connects to the unseen world and to God through the act of belief. And this is the absolute key takeaway, drawn directly from the source. Belief is not an intellectual exercise. You don't reason your way into it with your mind. In this view, real belief is a function of your spirit. It's how your inward man connects with things that can't be seen or touched. So, what's the ultimate point of all this? Where does it all lead? Well, according to the source, understanding yourself as a spiritual being, an inward man, isn't just a change in perspective. It's actually the key to unlocking a totally new kind of life. And that new life is what the source ultimately defines as Christianity. It's very careful to frame this as something different from a typical religion. It's presented not as a search for God, but as the answer to that search. This life is said to begin after salvation, and it's all defined by one core principle: Christ in you, a direct personal connection with the divine through that inward man. And the source material wraps up with a direct call to action. It asks people to share this message and to become, in its own words, a digital crusader. This really makes the purpose clear. It's not just an explanation of a concept, but it's an invitation to actually adopt and spread this worldview.
So we started with a big question about reality and ended up with a framework that completely redefines the self, not as a physical body, but as a hidden spirit. It's a pretty fascinating perspective on who or what we really are.
You've got to check out where the speaker got this from. In this short excerpt, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakilame breaks it down straight from the scriptures. Check the comment section for the link to the excerpt message.